this would probably be sent. I've got Twitter and YouTube up to one.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like Twitter's working, so I'm going to tweet this out. We are live. Tweet, and let's see if streaming on YouTube works. It says excellent connection.
Okay. Give this a bit of a retweet from
Oh, I think we're
welcome everybody.
Great. Yeah, get started. We're up on YouTube and Twitter. I am a tech genius.
You have done exceptionally well, sir. What are we up to? Episode 7.
That's my assumption. That's what I've called it.
Yes.
All right. Let's get. As always, we are very prepared for these things. Greg literally dials in a minute before, and then I press connect. So we haven't talked about what we're going to talk about today, but let's hear about the end of Veecon first and where you are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just tweeting this out as well. Okay. Yeah, so I'm a little bit all over the shop at the moment. I am currently still in Vegas. Last night in Vegas, it was a little bit of a extended stay, a forced extended stay to a degree. So I was meant to be in LA at this stage, but going to LA tomorrow. But the end of Veecon, I think the last time we spoke, Steve, was the big night of the mutant reveals for you and minting your land as well. So that show, I think, in the end, on Twitter alone, got over 10,000 views. So that was a good show for us with that one.
The power of the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
The power of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, certainly there. So that was the Saturday night. The final day of Veecon was sort of a half day. It started at sort of 10, 11 o'clock and finished up about 3:30. But it was a really powerful last day. Actually, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the big acts were, and when I say acts, he didn't actually perform, but Snoop came on stage with his son and also his manager, who's quite deeply down the rabbit hole of all things NFTs and Web3. And I was sort of expecting just this celebrity interview that, just danced around the topic a little bit and sort of it was all about just Snoop being on stage, right? It was actually very much opposite to that. It was a really insightful interview. I enjoyed listening to Snoop, his son, and the manager all chop it up with Gary for around about an hour, just on all sort of things Web3 and NFTs. And I would say, is Snoop running his Twitter account every time he says, I'm about to buy an NFT, or he's talking about this project or that project? I'm not sure, but I honestly wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually writing some of those, at least himself. He was very articulate about the space, and just really funny about it too. He was wearing his Bored Ape clothing line as well. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember the name of it. It was like Dr. Bombay, I think, off the top of my head. So Snoop has created a clothing line out of his Bored Ape called Dr. Bombay. And then just for me, I think one of the all-time Gary Vee rants to end, right? So he went from the Snoop interview, went off stage for about 2 or 3 minutes and came back and delivered probably maybe about a 10, 15 minute keynote to end. And I just found it really refreshing. I think Gary does a good job threading the needle of sort of talking about these attributes and values in life that we can sort of get ahead with, but making them cool to a degree and giving people permission to sort of be who they want to be. And Gary, the line that sort of stuck with me in particular was, he said, if you're good in life, you have a responsibility to be louder. And he was talking in the context of just social media in particular, and our worlds in online being quite toxic and quite negative, but not necessarily reflective of what was happening at Veecon or reflective of what's happening in society. It's just that the 6 or 8 really, really loud negative people are drowning out all the positivity. And it was one of the all-time great Gary Vee rants, and I've heard a lot of good ones over the years. I know it would be recorded. There was cameras everywhere all throughout Veecon. I don't think they've released it yet. I am hoping that a lot of the sessions from Veecon will be recorded, because it would be wonderful to sort of watch some of those back. And there was multiple streams throughout the conference, so you missed a lot of sessions. So whether he token gates those to Veecon ticket holders only, and then sort of sprinkles a few other keynotes out, I'm not 100% sure yet. There's been no information on that, but just wanted to sort of wrap Veecon up, because I know the last time we spoke, Steve, we were 2 or 2.5 days into Veecon, but I hadn't spoke about some of the last day. So I still think I'm going to write a Twitter thread on the recap of Veecon, but my schedule's been a little bit all over the shop the last couple of days, so haven't really had time to do that. But if you do see the final day Gary V video pop up anywhere online, please tweet me, because it was one of the all-time greats. So just thought I would throw that in off the top.
Awesome. Can't wait to see that one. I'm always a fan of a Gary V anger storm, or whatever you want to call him. But he is pushing that message of trying to be louder and getting rid of the negativity in the space and everything. But that's always going to be there. And during downtimes like this, you see it more and more. And pay attention to the people that are being negative, because when the good times come, they will change their tune. And if you decide to keep following them and letting them win, that's not the space we want to be in, really. So I also saw a couple of videos from Veecon. Oh, sorry about that. Were you there for was it the final concert? I saw a Bored Ape when they put all the drones in the air, and the drones formed the shape of a Bored Ape. Were you there for that?
I don't remember seeing that. That's not to say that it didn't happen, because there was 2 main concerts. One was on, actually it might have been the Thursday night, I'm not sure. There was like a welcome party out in the fields next to US Bank Stadium on the Thursday. I didn't stay to the end of that one, but the 2 concerts on the Friday and Saturday night were Wycliffe John. Wycliffe was a late ring-in for TLC, who came down with COVID, but Wycliffe was amazing. And then on the Saturday night it was Miguel, so your mate Steve Miguel. So I don't remember seeing that Bored Ape drone that you're referring to, but I'm sure it probably happened.
I also hear that Veecon was a super spreader event. I saw people tweet about it, and a lot of other people on Twitter talk about catching COVID after it. Was that true? Oh, sorry. And before that, one more question. I saw a lot of photos, maybe I asked this last week, of the women's bathrooms being turned into men's bathrooms in the stadium. Was that also true?
Yeah, I did see that pop up on social media, and to be honest, I don't remember seeing that at all. Now, again, that's not to say that it didn't happen, because it was in a major stadium, and Gary's already come on sort of Discord in the last week and said, some of his learnings would probably be next time he'll do it in a basketball stadium, so more of like a 20,000, 15,000 seats type of stadium, opposed to an NFL stadium like US Bank. Yeah, but to be honest, when you were there, I know that there was some commentary on social media about, it looked empty, but I think that was just the camera angles, right? That's a stadium that holds, I think, around 60 or 70,000 people, and you had a couple of thousand capacity on the floor, right? And the thing that I liked about it was you could move around a lot, right? You could have your own space. You wanted to go sit down on a seat somewhere and just bang away on your computer, or whatever you wanted to do. There was a lot of space, but excuse me. I think next time he's got earmarked the basketball stadium. But on cue, Steve, as I have a little bit of a cough, but no, I did come down with the wrath. I came down with COVID. I've tested negative now for. You might have to take the wheel for a second, Steve. I feel like I'm about to.
That's all right. You have some drinks. Well, while you've had COVID, I've had all my kids catch a cold, which, as we all know, transfers to man flu once the father catches it. So I'm feeling your pain, probably not as severe, but I also have a man flu. So are you feeling better? Can you speak again?
I am. I have and that cough last was probably the worst I've had in 3 days. So I think as soon as I was about to talk about it, it must have just reared its head. But no, I've been now for.
Okay, Greg, your internet is cutting out again, so your video has now gone,
Okay.
and your sound is pretty poor. But what we'll do until that comes back, because Greg is on his, I think, Wi-Fi dongle in Vegas. A few things that we're going to talk about today. First, I'm actually going to open my space strip, which, if you know Artifact Studios and Clone X, they created a lot of NFTs beforehand. So they did the Ferocious shoe drop, but before that, or maybe straight after, was Space Drip. So this was meant to be one of the first pairs of shoes that they were going to have the physical and digital. They did this well before Nike bought them, and they were meant to make those shoes a long time ago, but then they've held off, and now they're going to be, you can forge your shoes and get a Nike Air version of these shoes. I think there were about 16 artists, if I remember correctly, maybe more or less. I never opened mine, so I bought two, and I sold one at 15 ETH, I think, when this whole Clone X thing was happening. So I gave up 3 Clone X's and the actual space strip, which is back up to like 10 ETH. And then, of course, the 3 monoliths and everything. So that was a costly decision to sell that piece. But what I'll do, just for security, again, I will start the transaction. And then I don't know most of these artists, that they were very, not small, but like not famous artists at the time. There were a few. I bought a couple of Sean Williams pieces before. But then you've got other creators in the space, like Lupify had a pair, and Jaden, and a few others. So I don't mind what I get here, but I am so keen to claim the shoes and have the first ever pair of physical Nike/Artifact shoes. So let me just, Greg, if you're there, let's see if we can hear you. I'm just going to get this transaction going.
Can you hear me again now? While
yep,
you're doing that?
I can.
Excellent.
I'm just going to share my screen. This one.
And for those that are still waiting for our podcast version, audio-only version of the show, we're very, very close. We have submitted now to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the rest of it. So I would say in the next couple of days, you should see a couple of tweets from Steve and I just saying, if you do want to go back and check the back catalogue of our first 6 or 7 shows, it will be available.
Yeah, and that's pretty much just us rambling on like now. So there's a transaction in progress. The funny thing is, I think gas spiked at the exact moment I put in the transaction. And yeah, so it's a massive 45 Gwei at the moment, which back in the day, last year, we would have given anything for Gwei like that. All right. Oh, it failed. All right.
Wow.
That's strange. I will have to talk to... was it because... Let me stop sharing my screen. That's very strange. Let's have a look. Signed. I'm going to try one more time, but it is funny. There's been a few issues with their contracts, and of course, we're always forgiving of these big players in the space when contracts go wrong. I'm going to give it one more go. So I've already spent $15 US on a failed transaction. Let's try one more time. Okay. And this is from, let's see if we can share. Okay, if this fails again, failed again. Okay, I'm just going to wait. It says after opening your capsule, the space strip can take several minutes to appear in your inventory. All right, well, that was a fail. I'm going to have a look at these transactions and see what the issue was. Error encountered during contract out of gas. Okay, I'll figure this out later. So that was a fail. At least the mutant apes worked last week. Let's get on to a couple of the topics. What I was wanted to talk to you about this week was we've seen a lot of free mints. So Goblin Towns. I'm not sure if AI Moonbirds and now changed to AI something else. Nightbirds. We've seen Elf Town.
Yep.
And now we're going to see a million copycats. Have you seen these free mints? Have you got any of these free mints? And what do you think of them?
Yeah, so I haven't got any of them. There was the G Money Mint. There was the G Money Mint as well. And was Rex Guy? Was that a free mint?
I don't think that was. I think it was free if you held a D-Gens. But I think there was some payment on some of them.
Yeah, so I don't hold any, but certainly have just sort of seen them pop up, and obviously it's hard to sort of ignore them when they're the highest rankings on OpenSea, etc., on a daily basis. But I mean, I don't hold any, but I think that they're sort of funny, these meme ones, like the one that I got involved in at the end of last. I remember that I feel like we'll probably play out in terms of some of these ones is Lava Lads, I should say. So Lava Lads hit sort of late December last year, and there was, I think even Rose got like the alien one, and that sort of set things off, and then people sort of jumped into that. And but I think these things cool, right? They're just a moment in time. I find it hard to believe that any of these will be sustainable. I mean, maybe Rex Guy, but the others, it just seems like it's a hot potato for liquidity there. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, I've jumped in these things before. They can be a bit of fun, right? It's just, you just going back to your D-Gen roots, jumping in, seeing how it plays out. But like anything, I would just be saying, just be aware that these might not necessarily be projects that are going to be overly sustainable for long periods of time.
Yeah, so at the moment, Goblin Town is 2.85 ETH floor, which is amazing. And a few others are in the 0.5 to 1 ETH area. But we're going to see this non-stop for the next few months. It is a timing issue, like you said as well, with ETH crashing, everyone in despair. Nothing that costs anything is selling out. So I haven't seen a project mint out that had a price in a while. So from the creator perspective, it makes perfect sense, because the fact is nowadays you can get a contract up for a couple of $100 because gas is so low and ETH is low. You can create these 10K collections. If you had a team, once a day or once an hour, you could be going through creating traits, making all 10K and getting a project up. You need a website, a minting contract, very simple. All this can be done now for $1,000. So I can see, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams that are just cranking all these out non-stop, and then you make it a free mint. Whichever one hits, then you concentrate on that. So it's just a no-lose situation for the person. It's a bit of time, but all you need is probably 100 ETH in turnover to pay yourself a very healthy wage. So the idea from a business perspective is the ones that hit, you're going to get a lot of turnover. You put a 5% royalty on that. So Goblin Town, just looking, has done 13,772 ETH in volume on OpenSea only, not including LooksRare and the other platforms. So that, how's my math? And $2,000 ETH. That's about $1.5 million in royalties for a free mint project. So, and the great thing is, these guys have said, this is free. There is no roadmap. There is no utility. There's no Discord. There's nothing that we have to do anymore. And they can get away with it because they've been upfront and they've said, this is it. And now they're going to, and with such a high price, even if it goes down now, there's going to be another few thousand or 10,000 worth of turnover. So they're going to clear $2 to $4 million on something that hit. And like, I think the art's cool enough. Like Goblin Town looks pretty funny. But yeah, we're going to see this on repeat over the next few months. It's going to be free mint after free mint. And like you said, at the end of the day, in 6 months, I would be very surprised if any of these are over half an ETH. But yeah, like it's interesting. It shows the demographics in the space at the moment as well. And I always stay out of these things as well. But I do enjoy watching and reading everything on Twitter. Okay, so we talked about that. The other thing I was going to talk about, you're not in Australia, so you would have missed it. Four Corners last night had a crypto segment. Well, actually, the whole Four Corners episode. So in Australia, Four Corners is like, I guess, 60 minutes or something over in America. We've got our own 60 minutes, but no one watches it or really listens to 60 minutes in Australia anymore. So Four Corners is more the highbrow version of that in Australia. And they had a episode on crypto. And it was funny. I'd seen an article on ABC News about the Dogecoin millionaire. And my mum rang and said, "Oh, I saw that Four Corners has a crypto episode. You've got to watch it. I'm going to watch it." And I said to her, "I've seen the story," because they always come out with the story on ABC News on their website and then do the show. I said to her, "Look, they've got Dogecoin millionaire on there. This is going to be a very negative episode, and they're going to try to show all the bad side of things." I didn't watch it because I didn't have time. But looking at Twitter, that's exactly what happened. There was nothing but negative crypto news, how it's going to destroy the earth, all the old talking points. I will have a look at that later on, and I guess if you've got time, probably you'll watch it on a stream and we can talk about it next week. But in saying that, Sunrise, which is an Australian morning television show, had a segment on NFTs this week. And it was really well done. Like, I was actually very impressed by it. And we'll probably tweet it out. I think I've already retweeted it. But the most interesting thing was, at the end, one of the show hosts asked a very valid question. They were talking about AFL Mint, which is a new... Our sport in Australia, our biggest sport is the AFL. So you can compare it to the NFL or NBA. And there's a project called AFL Mint that is going to mint very much like NBA Top Shot, so cards and so on, and I'm sure they'll do a lot of extra stuff. So they were on there, and they mentioned that this famous kick that happened a couple of months ago was going to be one of the NFT moments. And the host mentioned at the end, "Oh, but who owns it really? Because the footage was filmed by Channel 7, which was their network, and then a different company that isn't owned by the NFL is going to sell that video footage." And then she's like, "But who owns the actual footage there?" So I thought that was a really interesting question. And of course, on a show like that, you can't get deep into the weeds and figure stuff like that out. But maybe a question we can try to get a legal person on to answer in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this just goes down to how nuanced the NFT discussion is, right? From use cases to, we're talking about sort of digital collectibles here, right? With this AFL Mint. Then we talk about, brand building like you're doing with NFTs, Stephen, like Bored Apes and Moonbirds and all the rest of it. So sort of these Web3 native brands. But here you've got the biggest sporting league in Australia that are dipping their toe into NFTs. And I think it makes sense for a league like the AFL to follow a Top Shot type model. But you're 100% correct. But what is the answer for Top Shot, right? Like, my understanding that if you own a LeBron dunk, a video, right, it's not, you sort of own that Top Shot moment, but you can't, or I should use a more simpler version of, if you had a LeBron image that was in the Top Shot model, can you print a t-shirt with LeBron on that t-shirt and then sell it? The answer is no, you can't, right? Because LeBron still owns sort of the image. He owns his own IP.
Or the NBA owns it.
Etc. Correct. But, I think that's where sort of the players' associations of these various leagues are getting involved with it. But there's a lot of, again, I don't have any NBA Top Shot as much as it's done incredible things for the space, and as much as I'm a basketball nut, I do have UFC Strike, but my understanding is you don't have ownership of that as opposed to Steve with your Gold Bored Ape or my Moonbird, where I can print a t-shirt, right, with my Moonbird on it, and I can sell it. Now, I don't know if anyone wants it at this stage, but technically I can do that, right? So I just think there's so much nuance. I think you're right, getting a specialized digital asset lawyer or somewhere around sort of the a lawyer that is versed in the IP space. There's just going to be so many new use cases and so many different sort of discussions to be had over the coming years of how this all sort of pans out. But back to that Sunrise special, Steve, I haven't seen the Four Corners special yet. I did see a few tweets about it this morning when I woke up. But the Sunrise 4.5 minute clip on NFTs, I actually tweeted that out last night before I went to bed. So if you go to my Twitter at Greg Oakford, you'll probably see that. If you are sort of watching live, I think we're on the 30th, 31st of May recording now, but that'll be recently on my timeline. But it was a really well thought out and balanced piece, I thought. I think that, mainstream media, we're always going to have this ebb and flow, aren't we? Of sort of, you're going to have, I think the thing that mainstream, I'm going to get a little off topic here, so reel me in when you want, but I think one of the reasons that I'm sure podcasts over the last decade, Steve, for you have been quite enticing to listen to, or just non-mainstream media, is it's unfortunate that most mainstream media these days have to pick a side, right? It's either good or it's bad. It can't be anywhere in the grey. It's got to be good or bad. So is it a hit piece or is it sort of a propaganda piece? And that's why I love sort of podcasts and even things that we're doing now where you can flesh it out in a little bit longer form and say, okay, there's pros and cons. The world is grey. The world is not black or white. And it's just unfortunate that mainstream media generally has to take that side. And sometimes it's because of time constraint, right? If you've only got 3 minutes, you sort of have to pick a side. Sometimes you don't have time for a balanced and nuanced discussion. But I think for a 4.5 minute piece from Sunrise, they did a really, really good job. And it was nice to see.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, I haven't seen the Four Corners episode. It's not like I disagree on a lot of it. So I think most of these crypto coins and NFT projects are going to go to zero, are worthless. It's just it's that little bit in between. It's the proper ones that are changing things that you want to give time to. And just from what I heard, talking about Doge and all these other, and of course we've had the Terra collapse and just the general market at the moment. So you can understand, and you're right, that they have to take sides because that's what gets views, and their whole job is to have many people watching as possible. And that's why getting your information from somewhere, which is crazy, like Twitter is my information source these days. I use Feedly and have a lot of blog links and that, but blogging has died massively over the past 5-10 years. But I still check my Feedly feed, which connects to a couple of news sites, and then a lot of blogs that I used to follow in the space. But yeah, that was a technology, RSS, that was going to be huge and then died off. It's still used a lot, but yeah, like any technology, it goes through its up and downs. But yeah, like we'll see. I think the narrative has been slowly changing. So I still remember we're still copying a lot of points from 2017, 18 now, as we keep growing. And the funny thing is, I think it was Steve Vallis that tweeted out the other day how the Bitcoin obituary link, and it's like Bitcoin has died this many times now. So we're still seeing these articles written that Bitcoin's over, and yet the price keeps going up, and more people are involved, and every on-chain metric keeps rising. So it's very interesting to see. I think it's an article any journalist likes to pull out of their back pocket when they don't have enough time, because it's always going to get a lot of clicks from both people who aren't invested in Bitcoin because they want their they think it's worthless, so they like reading it just to prove their point. And then Bitcoin people like to read it to say, how stupid are these people? They still don't get it. And yeah, so we're going to see a lot more Bitcoin obituaries over the years. I think we'll get up, I think it was about 460 that it's up to. We'll have 1,000 by the time Bitcoin's at 1 million or something like that. Okay, what else have we got today? I have not been paying barely any attention to the markets lately, so hopefully you've got something to talk about.
Well, let's talk about the G Money Mint for a second.
Yes.
I should actually mention too, Steve, I'm not sure if our live stream onto the NF Team's YouTube channel has worked. So I just had a little look at that, and but that's okay. We're still fumbling around with this new Riverside product, which is great, but just learning it as we go. But the G Money Mint, I was on Twitter when he released that a few days ago and said this mint is available, and I think you had to have one of his POAPs that he distributed previously, or there was another way you could get the mint. But I think it touched about a 20 ETH floor the other day, and I'm not sure what it's back down to at the moment, but I know a few people that I sort of keep in regular chats with have picked up one off secondary. One guy picked one up for about 4.3. But I think these utility passes, right, and these access passes are really trying to follow that proof model now. I think there's this hopium probably out there that this will be the next proof. Would I like to have one of these G Money admit one passes? Yes, I would. I'm not sure right now that it's on my hitting zone in terms of sort of 14 ETH was what I saw it at last time. But in terms of sort of, Steve, I wanted to get your thoughts, right? So G Money does this as a free mint, right? Supposedly, I believe, and I'm sure there's a royalty on there. Is that pressure for a creator or a founder like yourself, where some people have got, because this is something I actually want to ask Kevin Rose on when he comes on the show, or maybe a future Proof Discord. But, you've got people like me that paid 1 ETH for Proof, right? If Proof stopped tomorrow, there's no way I could say that I'm unhappy, right? I've got tremendous value out of it. And even someone that bought the top of the Dutch for 5 ETH could say the same thing. Now, someone that bought it at maybe close to 100 ETH a few months ago, or 6 weeks ago, whenever it might have been, that person's value extract is a lot different to mine at this stage. So as a founder, as someone like G Money that's done a free mint, so he's got people that, with low expectations at a free mint, but then some people have come in and bought at 20, right? So how do you reconcile that as a founder? Do you just take the sort of attitude that, well, the secondary market's going to do its thing, and if someone pays 20, then that's sort of their problem, and the value is the value that I give? Like, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so first, I think G Money actually curated his sort of free mint. So it was, if you had these certain POAPs, and then there were specific ETH addresses that he had put into a whitelist. So maybe if someone had interacted with him or he liked them, sort of thing, this is what I think happened, he allowed them to mint. So, and before I get on to your question, I'm still undecided on these sort of communities where it's, you get your NFT, you get in a Discord and you chat. I know you have found immense value in the Proof Collective, but a lot of these are we're sort of alpha groups. We're going to give you information on upcoming projects. We're going to tell you which ones to buy, when to buy. And I think these are sort of self-fulfilling prophecies, because it's well, we're all buying it. Of course it's going to go up. And if our alpha group shows that we've made profits before, people in our alpha group will share with other alpha groups, and then everyone's buying this product that we mentioned. And then that ends very poorly in all cases. And I've seen this with cryptocurrency alpha groups and so on. So those sort of ones where it's just, we're going to talk about projects and what we're going to buy, I think they're pathetic. But ones that you can have a sort of shared interest for NF teams, We have a sports shared interest. Proof, it is art, it is a few other things. But yeah, I'm really hesitant on joining any of those, and mostly because I don't even have the time to chat in a Discord. But onto your question. Sorry,
go ahead. Sorry, but yeah. No, I was just going to say I think time is actually a really, really important point. What you mentioned there, and that's one of the reasons that I didn't actually mint the CPG crypto package goods pop token a few weeks ago, and that's really struggled to keep its value on secondary. Obviously, it's not favorable market conditions at the moment, but sort of how many of these groups can you be in? I think for me personally, like just sort of looping into like I struggle just to keep up with proof, let alone have multiple of these. And so anyway, I cut you off a little bit there, Steve. Please continue.
Oh, that's all right. So I've hit my max on Discord of 100 things. I go into one now. I go into NFTs. If there is some sort of upcoming drop from another project or some sort of info, I will then go into that and try to find the information there. But yeah, it's just impossible to keep up with everything. So pick your spots. Now, onto if someone buys, we release a NFT. We can use NFTs. So our initial mint was 0.08. And I think the highest buy was maybe 6 ETH for one of the really rare ones. For me, we try not to talk about floor or anything like that because pricing is completely out of my hands once I've set the initial price. So at the time, 0.08 ETH, I had converted it. It was about $300 or something like that. I thought, fair enough to join this community, what I'm building, so on. Once it's out in the public, I have sort of control. I could say we're doing this, we're doing that, but there is very little control. There could be some huge influencer that decides they love the product and just constantly tweets about it. We've seen it with the OK Bears. A couple of big accounts have just decided, yep, this is the one that I'm going to pump. And you're seeing people follow them in. So once I've created something and it's out there, I don't really care about, I care about giving value to everybody. So I hope in a few years' time, like you've said with Proof, people will say, I got enough out of NFTs that I'm happy, even if it goes to zero in 5 years' time, sort of thing. So yeah, I try to pick a price point because I'm also trying to figure out this next player drop. So we do have a free jersey drop, that's for all the teams, but then we have a paid player drop, which is going to pretty much fund NFTs for the next 3 to 4 years. So trying to price it at a price that current members, who have first dibs, will be happy with, and then whatever's left, so whatever allocation doesn't get taken by NFT owners, there'll be probably a little bit of a higher price to join in the NFTs ecosystem. But yeah, once that sells, apart from releasing what I want to do and build, I pay very little attention. I do look at the floor price because I'm connected to the NFTs bot that shows every sale. So I know the floor price at the moment is 0.14 ETH. And I'm very happy, not that it matters, that our project is one of the few that has actually risen in this down period. But yeah, look, it sucks if you buy something that's 20 ETH and you see it all the time and people always tweet about it where it's some guy bought a Bored Ape for 150 ETH and then he puts it up for 80 ETH or something like that. And you're like, who are these people? But people get hooked by FOMO and everything, and they're just like, oh, I've got to get in because it's going to be double next week. And yeah, I guess I'm a bit harsh at times. I'm like, well, you've learnt your lesson, hopefully. But yeah, price does not faze me as a creator. But then, yeah, if I saw people buying teams for 100 ETH, and then they went down to 50 ETH, I probably would be a little bit worried. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it is a really interesting dynamic of NF teams. I should say NFTs in general and NF teams. But yeah, it's and congratulations too. I think it's been nice and healthy to see NF teams really sort of not just hold its price, but sort of start to climb up in ETH terms. I think that's probably a factor too, maybe Steve, with ETH dropping so much in the last month that I'm sure.
Oh, I think Greg has cut out for a final time here. Let's give him a sec. Oh, you're back.
Am I back? I was just,
yeah, you're back.
I was.
You're saying ETH was dropping.
I was just giving. ETH was dropping. I said that you might have had some people that were sitting on the sidelines looking to get into NF teams at a reasonable price. So you really you're looking at even at what 0.14. What's that going to shake out to be at Australian dollars? I'm not even sure. I haven't looked at ETH price the last couple of days. So
I'll do the math now. I think it's about. Let's see.
Do the math.
Oh, it's still a fair bit. $365 maybe, about there.
There you go. Yeah. So I think I wanted to give a shout out to. We saw the NFT NYC award nominations come out a couple of days ago. So we've had a couple of local nominations, being the AO Metaverse. So they are actually up in a category against Artifact and Bored Ape Yacht Club. So good luck with that one.
But it is for innovation. And the funny thing is, I think AO Metaverse was probably the most innovative of the lot.
I think you could make a very, very strong case for that, for sure. But I would struggle for...
It's a popularity contest, you know that.
It's going to be a popularity contest. So shout out to Ridley and the team at Run It Wild, etc. Those guys did a phenomenal job. So, maybe funnier things have happened, but also Danielle Weber, who has got a nomination for sort of for her art. She's in a category with like Amber Victoria and a couple of other well-known artists as well. So shout out to Danielle, who you shared a stage with, Steve, at Blockchain Week back in March.
Yep. And Danielle was actually teaching people. Well, we talked about the same thing, where how hard it was to onboard people into the space. And she had also on her Twitter, I believe, has done a lot of videos trying to help explain NFT concepts. So I've sent a few people that have asked me, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean, to her tweets. So yeah, hopefully she can pull off the win there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to give Danielle and the AO Metaverse a vote, I think you can just go to the NFT NYC website, and nominations close, I believe. Well, not nominations, but voting closes Thursday US time. So you've probably got till Friday Australian time. So get on that in the next couple of days if you're willing.
So
one of the
will
other
you
things,
be at
Steve, I'm not sure
NY? Sorry, will you be at NYC NFT?
Yes.
Geez, that's a mouthful, that. From what I've heard, there's like 1,500 speakers, and most people don't actually go for the speakers. It's more the side events. And at the same time is a Ape Fest as well. Let me know what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I will be at NFT NYC, but before that, I'll be at Consensus, which is a traditional crypto conference. But if you look at the agenda and lineup this year, there's a lot of NFT content. I know Punk 6529 is doing a keynote as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm sure that will be a dialed-in, muffled voice experience, but nonetheless, I think it'll be still good. But yeah, heading to Consensus first and then to NFT NYC. I have heard that same sentiment, Steve, from a number of people I know that attended in November last year in New York, to sort of say, like, maybe the ticket's not even worth it. I bought my ticket for about $500 US about 2-3 months ago. If I'm going to be over here, I would prefer to see some of the content. I think that's probably, to be honest, I mean, I haven't been there yet, but it seems like it's a little bit of a sheep mentality where someone's just heard that and gone, oh, okay, well, all content must be rubbish then. I'm
Yep.
sure with 1,500 speakers, it is going to be hard to navigate. There's going to be a lot of different venues and different sort of breakouts and things like that. But I actually am interested in the content. I'm going to pick some sessions that I want to attend, and I will attend those. But there's no doubt that this particular event seems like it's the one that has the most parties or sort of conferences, or conference is the wrong word, but parties or events in and around NFT NYC. Like, I've already got a packed schedule. I think on the the Monday night, can't remember what's on the Monday. Cyber Brokers announced an event, right? So I've got Cyber Brokers. There's Ape Fest from the 20th to the 23rd. So that goes every night of the event from the 20th to the 23rd. On the 21st, there's a Proof and Moonbirds one. I think on the 22nd, I'm attending something, with the Probably Something project. So for those that are aware of Probably Something, ran by natfax.eth. And then on the Thursday, there's a World of Women event as well. And that's like 5 events out of probably hundreds and hundreds. So it is going to be a busy, packed schedule, but really looking forward to it, right? I think that there will be the most amount of people that I've met in this space over the last 12 to 15 months will be in New York. Like, Veecon was great, and I saw a few people, but I think that you have to have some type of sort of affinity, Gary or V friends to probably have made Veecon. Whereas NFT NYC, I think is going to be just a huge contingency of the people that we interact with on sort of a daily basis, Steve, whether it be Twitter or Discord. So really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I heard that Moonbirds had a special event for certain Moonbirds. Was it, if you had it wasn't a hoodie up, it was like a Wizards one or something like that. Did you see that?
Yeah. I did. So there was an impromptu Twitter Spaces yesterday called Moonbirds and Coffee with Kevin and Justin at about 9 or 10 o'clock LA time, Pacific time yesterday. And unfortunately, it wasn't recorded. It was really good, but they spoke about those particular attribute parties for a Wizards hat. There wasn't anything for hoodies up like mine at this stage. But the particular, I think that's going to be, Ape Fest is going to be insane. But I think then, taking the silver or maybe even competing for the gold is going to be the Proof and Moonbirds party on the 21st. So they're actually using token proof to sort of verify, and one Moonbird equals one ticket in. So Kevin confirmed that yesterday on the Twitter Spaces, because there are people that are looking to take +1s, etc. So if you own multiple Moonbirds, you can sort of have your +1s through those multiple Moonbirds. And then I think, and then if there's going to be additional space, they said, depending on, thank you, there's going to be additional space, you can bring a +1, but it's all sort of still TBD right now.
Yeah, Token Pass is something that I really want to look into. The long-term hope of NFTs is to get our own sports bar as well. And of course, we'll have NFTs holders will get discounts, but then there might be a sports bar token that gives larger discounts as well. But you also don't want people bringing their phones with a very expensive NFT on there. So, as one example, we saw Beeple, we're assuming his phone got taken and a tweet was put out for a fake mint. But it's very likely, if you've got MetaMask on your phone, that someone could not only steal it, but then get into your phone and transfer all your NFTs. So what I've been doing when I travel, I have a secondary phone now. So I do have MetaMask on my phone just for random things with 1 or 2 accounts on there. But if I'm going to an event, I have a secondary phone that I use that doesn't have any of that and doesn't have any other information. But having something like Token Pass, and I haven't looked into it enough, but I believe it sort of can show without you having to have access to the NFT at that time. So that's going to be very interesting. And I think Maddie from at the Melbourne event used, I don't know if he used Token Pass or something else, where you could prove that you owned one of his NFTs, and then you were given a hat or some sort of merchandise. So I think that sort of space is very interesting, and I can't wait to look into it as well.
Yeah, so I think it's actually called token proof, and you're right.
Oh, sorry.
Maddie at Blockchain Week did utilize that. So look, I haven't used it that much myself. I will be using it in the next sort of month for some of these NFT NYC events. But my understanding of it, Steve, is that you go to a site and you're essentially verifying your assets, and then it spits out a dynamic QR code. So you download a traditional app, I believe, the Token Proof app.
I'm just at the
and
website
then you'll get a dynamic, you'll get a dynamic QR code, which refreshes something like every 15 or 30 seconds. So that's the way that you will sort of gain access to those particular events. But we saw, and I did a bit of a PSA on our last episode, Steve, because someone lost their VFriends or got their VFriends swiped, having MetaMask on their phone at the event at Veecon, and there was a dodgy QR code on many different sort of handouts and sort of cards and things like that were on the tables at Veecon spread around, and someone sort of, unfortunately, probably not overly versed in crypto security, did click on this QR code, and then even worse, went down the rabbit hole of clicking approve for a signature, probably thinking they were going to get something for free or whatever it might have been, and they had their 3 friends, I think, swiped, and their Veecon tickets. It was a worry for me, to be honest, when Gary announced. I was a little bit surprised. Like, on the plus side, the Veecon app was exceptional. The contacts that you could put on there, the agenda, everything was a really good app. It never went down, from my understanding. The negative side was you had to have your Veecon ticket in a hot wallet that was enabled on your phone. Now, that was the first time that I re-downloaded MetaMask on my phone, and I created a burner account. And the only thing I put in that wallet was my Veecon ticket. So I sent the Veecon tickets were airdropped to one of my wallets that hold my Series 1 VFriends. And I transferred the Veecon ticket to a burner hot wallet. And that was the only thing I had on that. And that was the way that you authenticated the Veecon app, which was your ticket swiping with a QR code at the venue every day. Including sort of pass outs, etc. But the downside was always going to be, in my view, and we saw it play out, where Gary did say it and his team did repeat, create new wallets or have very limited value on a wallet that holds your Veecon ticket. But unfortunately, some people, that message didn't get through, or they just didn't understand the necessity to make sure that there was very low value on that particular wallet. And I said it to a friend of mine, Steve, who traveled with me to Veecon, that is just sort of learning. And I said, the reality is, we actually had dinner with someone, an American guy, a random guy, and he only really had VFriends, and he had about 6 VFriends Series 1. And he had it on his MetaMask. I was trying to tell him about something at dinner, and he whipped out his phone and he opened up MetaMask right next to me, and it was fully signed in. So he put his seed phrase, obviously, into the MetaMask, etc., into the phone. And I said to my mate, Daniel, I said, honestly, all it takes is I could have literally snatched his phone, ran out of the restaurant, ran around the block, transferred those VFriends if he had a little bit of ETH in there for gas, and transferred them to another wallet, and they're gone, right? And that's
you didn't even need to go that far with it. There's like a button that in MetaMask mobile that throws up a QR code. You could have, if he went for 1 second, you could have got that QR code up, copied it into your MetaMask, and you got full control of his account without him even knowing. So it's extremely dangerous, and there is a lot of teachings that need to be done with all that sort of security.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just think, again, if you're coming to these events in the next couple of weeks, whether it's Consensus, NFT, NYC, etc., one of the unfortunate things while we are, as an industry, trying to figure all this shit out is, you would hope that some of these event organizers would be a little bit more pre-planned with some of these things, so that people are about to get on flights don't need to necessarily stress about, do I have to have access to everything while I'm traveling? But the reality is, at the moment, you know, people are just not that organized, right? And we're still looking at things like token proof and how they're going to work and things like that. But my recommendation is always to be overly conservative. And if you're going to miss out on something, or whether it's a free mint or a claim or whatever, then so be it. Because if you've got a few tokens that have some value, you know, it's going to be it's going to be harder to stomach losing that token than maybe missing out on one little event here or there. So, but you know, this goes back to how early we really are, you know, doesn't it, Steve? I mean, I feel we'll be talking about this in 2 or 3 years and go, remember when like Gary had to make everyone get a hot wallet and put their ticket in there to even get in? You know, these are type of the conversations that we'll be having.
Yeah, well, that guy showing you his MetaMask open is pretty much as if he opened up his real wallet that he had in his pocket and showed that he had $50,000 in cash in there, that someone could have just gone, yoink, done. So that's the sort of connection people need to make between it. At the moment, they all seem like pretty digital things that we don't understand enough. So yeah, the next few years are going to be interesting. And like you said, we're all still building out products. No one in the last year and a half thought NFTs were going to take off like they have. So now we're playing catch up on all this tech that we're trying to build. All right, we're at an hour. Was there anything else you wanted, or should we maybe just end with where we think the markets sort of go in the next few weeks, or even to next week? And yeah, maybe end there.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to sort of wrap up. I can see my laptop's about to die with battery soon anyway. But look, I've actually stayed away from looking at prices the last few days. I've got to say that the day I found out I had COVID actually was a pretty sucky day. It was the same day that I think ETH went down by like 10%, and I had a little bit of a freak out moment. I was like, everything's going to zero, and I got COVID and this and that. It was over dramatic as I was cooped up in my hotel room. But
were there tears?
For my own. There weren't tears. There was one or two people I spoke to on the phone copped a good rant, but that was about it. But no, I've stopped looking at the price as much. But ironically, I saw on Twitter actually that I think there might have been a little bit of relief earlier today, but I sort of don't want to count the chickens too much at this stage. But I think I actually started looking at my traditional stock portfolio a little bit the last sort of week or so. And I see that some of that has finally turned a little green after having just an absolute bloodbath from around about November, December last year. And it does seem like crypto lagged, right? I remember keep thinking like some of those tech stocks that I had just small exposure to, but they were down 70, 80, 90%. And I was looking at the crypto markets going, geez, the crypto markets hasn't really followed suit here. You know, it felt like crypto was lagging 3 to 4, maybe even 5 months behind that massive downturn that we saw in tech stocks. So, you know, as I see a little bit of an upward trend, and obviously this is not financial advice. We don't give financial advice on this show. It's for entertainment purposes only, as we forget our disclaimer again, Steve.
There it is, though.
You know, I think... yeah, that is it there. I think it was positive for me to see a little bit of green in the traditional stock market, but who knows, right? Like the thing that I keep thinking about is like, you know, is this lulling us to sleep again, right? Like you know, you think it's all over. You have this emotional sort of reaction to, you know, markets going down and down and down, and then you get a little bit of green and you go, oh, okay, we're safe again. But then, you know, we've seen it in the last month. You know, daily drops of 10, 20% are not unlikely. So I am definitely staying quite conservative. You know, I do keep thinking about what many of the OGs, including yourself, have said in the space around that sort of prolonged bear from sort of 2018 to sort of mid to late 2020. I'm just hoping that is not the scenario. Like, I think that if it goes for a few months, if it even goes for 6 to 12 months, I think that's palpable. But, a prolonged bear would be quite difficult. But, this space still excites me incredibly, regardless of what the markets are doing. I just think that it's everything that, from a marketing standpoint and how brands are going to be built and what incumbent brands are going to need to pivot to in the coming 5 to 10 years. Like, it's such an exciting space regardless of markets. So that's my little spiel to end.
Awesome. Well, the funny thing is, ETH is up over the past week, 0.44%. So it did have a pump today of 10.27%, and we're very close to $2,000 on ETH again. When you say crypto markets, I'm assuming you're talking more BTC and ETH, because a lot of the other coins are down that 80-90% margin. But it's always interesting. I always make sure I have enough cash to get through any type of long cycle, because these are the worst times to, like, I'm not saying, and again, not financial advice, that Bitcoin and ETH can't go down another 50%. It can very easily, and ETH at 1,000, I can see that very easily. So you've got to understand that it can, but these are also the times where if you've got enough extra cash flow from your job or whatever, investing now has always, for me personally, paid off. So it's just an interesting time to look at the market. It's so unstable. I honestly have no idea which way it's going to go over the next 6 months. I really think this price range between 1,500 and 2,500 on ETH is going to be where we're stuck for the next 6 months. And there'll be plenty of relief rallies, then crashes, and so on. But yeah, interesting to see. I really don't care about the market. I care about NFTs and building NFT teams. So that's it for this week. We've crossed an hour. You'll have a lot more stories next week for us as well. It's great. I spend all my time here working, so I'm boring because I've got no news, and it's like I get to talk to you, and you bring the outside world in here every week. So I can't wait to speak to you next week and hear what you've been up to, and I guess we'll see you all then for the 5 people watching. We'll see you later.
See you. Bye.